Kim Johnson. And my name is Craig Busher, and I'll just introduce myself quickly. So I am a member of the Montana Reading League of the board, and I am an instructional consultant and travel around the state and the country doing literacy trainings for teachers and workshops, and I teach a little bit for the University of Montana as well. And so I will introduce Kim, our speaker tonight. So Kim is a preschool teacher in Hardin. She has over 20 years of experience in the classroom, currently lives in Billings, Montana. She's also a board member of the Montana Reading League and is also not, she doesn't have enough on her plate. So she's currently enrolled in the Mount St. Joseph's Reading Science Certificate program, just 5 courses in the science of reading. And I've had the privilege of observing Kim teach on a few occasions and implementing really high quality instruction with effective instructional and engagement routines. And, she gets impressive growth across the school year of her students and impressive outcomes. If, as Kim is presenting, if you do have an immediate question, if you put it into the chat, then I will interject and I'll ask that question to Kim. Otherwise, we can have questions at the end. All ready to go, Kim?
Yes.
Good. Let me share your presentation.
And remember, everybody, you're welcome to turn your screens off now and just listen to Kim, and we'll have a discussion where you can turn all your screens back on afterwards.
Okay.
All right, good to go. You can see the presentation?
Yep, I'm good. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks to Craig for the great introduction. And also a part of my background, I have a master's in special populations, working with like kids that might need extra supports, might fall in any of the previously considered like at-risk categories. So that really helps out in any of our backgrounds. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide, Craig. This was a quote I kept hearing over and over a couple of summers ago when I was originally getting this presentation ready for the Big Sky Summit. And it talked about you need to make sure that you have strong roots in order to produce great fruit. And I really connected this to our pre-K students. We really got to make sure that we're working on their vocabulary skills along with their social, emotional, and everything in order to be able to support them as they go into the later grades and really help them to blossom and bring things to fruition as they get older. And I was a 5th grade teacher for 7 years. And going back down to the preschool, I really see how having those strong foundations and roots is really going to make a difference in those later grades as we go through. And part of what I think about when I'm thinking about developing these roots and what we work on in our program here is really working on the classroom management. The roots, we want to make sure that there's the consistency and building routine within routines, not just being like, okay, now it's time for small group, come to small group. Like, how do you get there? Do you walk there? Once you get there, you sit down, eyes on the teacher, ready to talk, all of those kind of things. It goes along with the clear expectations and establishing the trust and safety in the classroom, making sure you're using those science-backed practices. And then me as a teacher, it's not just a growth mindset. I need to have an adaptive mindset. All of this new information that I take, how am I going to actually adapt my practices and keep myself growing in order to keep the kids engaged and make sure they're getting their stronger student voice and they feel comfortable taking chances and making sure that they're progressing and having joy in all of that as you see them growing through it. Go ahead. And at the our younger grade levels, we really work a lot on the language strand of the rope. We really work on our vocabulary knowledge and our language structures, creating a lot of the deep background knowledge for the kids. A lot of the kids that I work with will come in already a year or two behind what they consider where they should be. So we really have to work on building up their language and getting them to where they want to go. And then we work a lot on our phonological awareness too, and making sure that the kids can understand the word parts and then the words that make up the sentence, just all of the background knowledge that they need in order to get ready to go into those upper grade levels. So then we'll start talking about our routines that we do in the classroom to get this going. Okay. So we started using sound walls a couple years ago in our classroom. One reason we started using it because we noticed we were getting a large number of kids with speech articulation problems. So, and it was more than like a speech language pathologist could handle at that time because there were so many kids. So we're like, what can we do within a classroom setting to help these kids be successful? So we started using the sound walls, and for anybody that doesn't know, it teaches the kids where the sounds take place in the mouth. Like you'll have the top row is the stops, so they know it's just a quick sound. And then like the first one, your lips are together. So it'd be the short, the p and the b. And it's helping the kids be able to articulate it the right way. And it talks about like, are their lips together? Are their lips apart? And we've noticed it has made a big difference in kids in how they speak, both in the classroom and to each other. They're able to understand each other during play, besides what we hear in our small group. And then that also carries over into the later grades, like the kindergarten, the first, all the way through as they're beginning to spell too, because they can say the sound more clearly and then they can hear the sound more clearly. So they're able to translate it to the grapheme and write the correct grapheme on the paper. And this is the beginning of the year sound wall, and we did it in kind of a game format. We locked the letters and then the kids get to unlock them as we go along. And this year I'm actually doing like a Mario theme because I have a lot of Mario kids. So we covered the letters in kind of the Mario style block. So they think they actually get to like air punch them open when we unlock it. So they think that's kind of fun this year. And we do use the Kidlips program, and I've done it both following the Kidlips, the sounds that they suggest going through the year. And then I've also done it in the order that the curriculum we use introduces the letters. And I've seen good results both ways. I do like the Kidlips better because it has such a difference between the two sounds. Like it might do a stop and then it'll do a nasal sound. So it's two completely different placements in the mouth. So the kids really feel the difference between the sounds. Like our first sound I think we did was t, and then the next one was so they could really feel the difference. They're like, oh, when I talk, those sounds do happen in different parts of our mouth. And then as we unlock them, then we'll add in like the student names and we'll add in key pictures to help the students make connections. And when I first introduce a sound with kids this age, I do have the grapheme card, but I cover up the grapheme. So it's just the key picture, like the t went with turtle. So I had the picture of turtle, but then I covered up the grapheme for it until we actually talk about the letter T. And then when I talk about the letter T, we'll take the sticky note off so they can see the actual grapheme that matches the sound. And next we'll take a look at what the sound wall looks like after we've been through it. So then this was my sound wall at the end of the year. So you can see everything's like uncovered, and there are still sticky notes on some of the graphemes. I only use the grapheme that is the most common. So like for example, the V, it has V and VE. I covered up VE so that at the pre-K level, we're just working on V says V, just working on that one. And then I don't have any of them up there, but our like weekly vocabulary words, we would put them up there, try to find out the sound that they would go to. And then the sound wall activities you also do is your voice on or off. Like for the stops at the top, you have the p for pig, and then you have the b for bat. So the students actually touch their voice box and they have to figure out which one is your voice on and which is your voice off. And that, again, will really carry over into the later spelling. And in fact, I have a colleague that's working in the upper elementary grade levels, and she's noticed that her fifth graders cannot distinguish between sounds that are close, like the p and the b. And we've been talking to each other about how she can support them to hear the difference and feel the difference. So this is a really big component if they're not making that phonological connection to the sounds. It's going to really show up later in their spelling. And then after the wall is unlocked, we'll do all kinds of different things. We'll do like touch a sound. I'll be like, okay, and give them a pointer and be like, okay, who can go find the sound shh? And they'll go up and touch the sound shh. And then after we've practiced it, I'll have the kids, the sound wall will become a center of their own. And they can go up there and like quiz each other, make up their own games. Like, okay, can you find the one that goes with horse? Can you find the one that goes with net? Or we could even do which kind of sound. Okay. So it'd be like, oh, this one, my voice is going to be off. And then my lips will be together. Could it be which sound could it be? Or we'll play guess my sound. And I think we have a video of the guess my sound that we can listen to see. And this is at the end of the year, definitely, but it's kind of fun to see how the kids actually can do the activity in the video.
Into these clues. This sound you make by having your mouth open a little bit, and your tongue is going to hit behind your teeth, and you're going to turn your voice off. So open your mouth a little bit. Yep, and have your tongue hit behind your teeth. What's the picture that goes with turtle? Turtle! It is a turtle. What happens if you turn your voice on? What does it turn to? For dog. 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 All right.
So that's kind of fun. And I've noticed, because we have several students that do get speech services, and I can go talk to our SLP and get ideas, find out exactly what sounds that they're working on, and I can bring those activities or supporting activities into the classroom and even give her some of the sound wall pictures too. So we try to work together. We try to come up on for lessons that the kids can see in both settings and experience more success that way too. We'll go ahead to the next one. And this is great because you can use it not just for like a sound wall activity, use it for articulation checks everywhere. During the alphabet song, because we'll do the cards, we'll do like a, ambulance, just checking our sounds for that. Anywhere we're talking about the phonemes, we'll use it for syllable checks too. When we're introducing vocabulary, like we have one is like surprise. I'll be like, okay, make sure your teeth are together and do this and this extend it, be like surprise. Just little checks like that where they don't even realize that they're practicing their speech or their articulation or even recognizing the phonemes. And then just anything like the kids that still say math. Instead of math, you can be like, okay, where does your tongue go? Give them the little directives of how to correct that. And then to go along with the sound wall, we always talk about like, where is the air coming out? Is it coming out your nose? Is it coming out your mouth? Are your lips together when you make that sound? Are they apart? Are they tight? Are they rounded? Is your voice on, off? What is your tongue doing? And then when you notice that there's something they're not connecting with, you have the understanding yourself as a teacher. You'd be like, oh, I understand why you thought the sound was p instead of b, because your voice was off instead of, or was on instead of off. And little things like that, where it's helped myself as a teacher to better understand some of the spelling errors too that I was seeing at the older grade levels. So any of the deeper understanding is great for the teachers too. And then it's also, yeah, go ahead. It's also really going to pay off in their writing. Now, this was one of our, definitely one of our kids that took the sound wall and they just ran with it. So this is a writing sample at the end of the year. So it says 5 caterpillars in the jar. So she could even go, she could feel the for the and find that on the wall too. And just great to see that. So you can see how it increased the sound identification. It also helps the kids have clearer speech. It supports them on so many different aspects to be successful. All right, go ahead. And then you can take this and you can bring it into your small group and just use it to tweak the activities that your curriculum might be suggesting for you to do. Like if there's a letter card practice in there, just take it, how can I bring the sound wall activities in to make it a little more like concrete and relatable for the kids? And even for phonemic awareness, how can you adapt the materials to reinforce other subjects? How can you include actions or opportunities for the students to reflect and explain? And we will try, there's quite a bit of background background sound on the top video, but it's a really good one to see how you can support the kids in using the sounds independently. It'll go. Maybe. If it doesn't want to play, that's all right. Oh, there we go.
Now we're gonna skip around. What's this letter? Name is G. Name is G. Picture is goose. Sound is good. Okay, touch your throat. Touch your throat. See if your voice is on or off. Touch your throat. Touch your throat. Touch your voice box. Okay, and do the good. Is your voice on or off? On. It's vibrating, isn't it? It is just kind of like the front. All right, let's do a whole card. Go. We're saying G. Goose. Good. You got.
Mm-hmm. So you can see how it helps some of the students just by checking their voice box to see if it's on, to make sure, because a lot of the time when they're learning the G, their first reaction will be connecting it to like the soft G, the J sound. So you can be like, okay, make sure your voice is on and do the G. So it's a really concrete one for them to see. And we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide then. That one's okay. So then we start going into our vocabulary routine, because this is where we've really noticed our kids need a boost in their daily vocabulary and those two tier 2 words. So we do a 5-day rotation through the words, and usually we have 6 words each week. Right now, since we're still at the beginning of the year, I'll introduce 3 words on Monday and then the other 3 words on Tuesday. Then usually by the end of October, I can get all 6 words in. So when we'll go through each of these days, the routine for them, each of them will get their own slide. So we'll go ahead and look at day 1 first. So on this one, it's a lot of teacher talk on the first day, because I'm introducing the word, how to articulate it, and then I'm giving explicit instruction on what the definition is, examples of it. And we try to do multiple pictures. We've actually started making our own vocabulary cards for the curriculum that we're using. So we try to do 4 different representations so that there should be some kind of a picture that the kids connect to. So like we had market, and there was like the outdoor market, indoor market, markets from other countries, just to build a broader knowledge for them too. And we'll start out, it'll just be listen and repeat. I say it, then you say it. Okay, we'll be like, the word is market. You say market. And then I'll say the definition. And they repeat the definition. I'll do some explaining, and then we'll do the goal of saying it 6 times. We'll say it 6 times on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to make sure they get those multiple repetitions of it. Because we always talk about, like, the more you say it, the better your brain will understand it is how we present it to the kids. And then we try to do a total physical response with them to get them to, so I can do like an action, and that action might trigger the word for them when we're working on it. And we'll do the definition, and I'll try to give lots of examples of how to use it too. And I think this video is kind of long. So if we want to skip to like minute 2, right at 2 minutes, and then go to like 2:30, that should be a good representation of practicing one of the words.
First one. Market.
And the word we're going to work with is stalk, like the lion has to stalk the gazelle.
Hunt slowly and quietly. Your turn. Stop.
Tell me again, Kim, where you want that to be. It's 2
2
minutes and
minutes.
40.
Just right at
That's
2
2
minutes.
minutes.
Yep.
Okay.
Post. And say, stop. 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 2 more. Stop and stop. Can you see? The lion has to quietly stalk the antelope. Go. The lion has to quietly stalk the antelope. It doesn't want to
That's
scare it away.
good.
Then it would have given me a would it.
So it's good to bring in any of the like the intonation or the quiet and the loud voice. So you can see when we did stock, I had talked about in the explanation, the lion has to be very quiet when it stalks up on its prey because it doesn't want the animal to run away. So that's a lot of building the background knowledge, getting the vocabulary in, and then bringing in that physical response for the kids too. And ones that don't have a lot of physical response, we might just stomp or clap them out. Like for market, we might stomp our feet, we like market, and then say it fast, market. So that way the kids are still moving and then getting some syllable practice in there too as we do that. And we'll look at what our day 2 routine is. Again, we'll do the listen and repeat because the kids are still kind of catching on to the word and the pictures that go with it. Oh, and when I introduce the word, I usually have the first letter it's usually a different color so that when we're focusing on the sounds, like the, what do we have? Like this week we have surprise. So I have the S in surprised in red and the other letters in black. So we can really focus on the first sound too and starting to make those connections. And then we'll do the listen and repeat and the definition again. And then this day I do more extensions. I'll talk about some different pictures. We'll have deeper conversations about what happens when you go to a market, or what do we have in town that is like a market, and talk about like the grocery store is our version of a market, or pick out one of the pictures from it where it had like the outdoor market. Like if you go to an outdoor market, what might you buy at the market? Or what would you see at the market? Anything like that to try to make more connections for them, and then getting the students more involved in talking for that day. And then the next day, we'll actually do a lot more student talking. So we'll look at day 3. So on this one, I actually do stop and think. Well, I'll bring the card up, usually on the overhead. I'll be like, okay, now stop. Everybody turn your voice to quiet, and you're going to think about the word. Okay, think about what is this word? And I might give a clue like, oh, I see it starts with a S. Maybe point out something in the pictures if it's one that really needs some support. Like, okay, when I snap, tell me what the word is. And then they tell me what the word is. And then I'll give the word too in case there is a misconnection. And then I'll give the connection. And it's kind of a way for me, I can kind of watch and see what students are able to produce the word on their own and what ones still need some support, maybe to work in small groups some more on that. And then I talk about, we do the stop and think because we need to make sure some people can think in their brain and get the word out right away. And some of our classmates need to think a little bit longer and find the word to pull it out. It's a way to work with the 4s and 5s. And then I'll give the definition. Usually I'll have them complete the sentence on that, or I'll give a sentence stem. So it's not just me saying the definition, they fill it in and then we'll repeat it. And then after I've given a couple examples, I pull names and have the students use the word in a sentence. And then like they might say, I would buy an apple at the market. So they say it, and then I'd have the class say it. And if it's a student that needs more support, like if they just say, I might ask, what would you buy at the market? And then they would say, bananas. I'm like, okay, so I would buy bananas at the market. And then they would repeat it, and then the whole class would repeat it. So it's a way for everybody to have some buy-in for creating the sentences, and they're feeling valued because their voice is being heard, and other students are getting different representations. Maybe they're thinking of something, they're getting new ideas, something they didn't even consider a connection with a word. And then on day 4, we start to go into fast word. That's where I'll have the cards either on the board, or we do print them out too. So I might just have them stacked up and be like, okay, today we don't stop and think. You're going to tell me the word as soon as you know it. Okay, and we'll go through, and usually we'll go through 2 or 3 times to give everybody a chance to catch on. And like, I'll flip it, I'll be like, and they'll say surprised. And I'll be like, oh, surprised. What was the word? Surprised. And they say it again. And then to start off the year, I'll just ask questions about maybe like 2 words. I'll be like, okay, tell me about a time you were surprised. And at the beginning of the year, I'll even give the same sentence stem. I felt surprised when, and then we practice all saying it together. And then as we progress through the year, we're going to start doing partner options, where we'll start off just turn and talk. Be like, okay, tell your classmate next to you, I felt surprised when. And then by usually December, we can start pairing them up. I'll do peanut butter and jelly. I have peanut butter necklaces and jelly necklaces, just little icons I've printed off, and I'll print them off, pair them up. And have them, we work on the whole, we look at our partner, we face our partner, who's the talker, who's the listener. And we've practiced all of that and be like, okay, Jelly, you're going to be the speaker. Jelly, you're going to tell them about a time you felt surprised. And Peanut Butter, you're going to listen. And then we'll switch and do the same question with Peanut Butter talking. And then eventually we'll get to the part where the listener actually says, I heard. So if Jelly said, I was surprised when my grandma bought me a new horse. Peanut Butter says, I heard you were surprised when your grandma bought you a new horse. So that way we know that they're listening, and it's kind of a comprehension check too. So if I can also use it to see, can they repeat like the whole sentence? Do they just get parts of what the student is saying? And then we'll usually do 6 questions, 1 question for each word. So you can see it's really a progression of how we get up to that. And it is completely doable with our 4 and 5-year-olds. It does take a lot of structure. And this year, I'm actually going to get some of the little badges like you get at the different conferences. And I'm going to put, like, we have peanut butter and jelly, we have peas and carrots, ice cream and sprinkles. And I'm going to have them clip those on, because sometimes the necklaces, they'll play with them and different things like that. So I'm going to try those and see if that works a little bit better this year. Hopefully it does. And then we'll look at some more suggestions. So for day 5, then we'll do the fast card again, no wait time, and then we'll still repeat it to support all the learners. And then we play What's My Word? So I'll start I'll pick out 2 cards, and I'll hold up the 2 cards. And I'll be like, okay, this is a listening activity. So stop, look, listen. Okay, turn your voice off. Okay, when you know the answer, keep it in your head until I snap. So we give everybody a chance to think. And I'll hold up the 2 cards. Like we have like surprised and stubborn this week. So I'd give clues on, okay, this word means something that doesn't want to change. This might be a donkey. When you're pulling on it, it doesn't want to move. Or it might be if you're arguing with somebody, you don't want to listen to them. We've had the kids kind of talking about this week. So it's been interesting to see what their input about stubborn is. Okay. And then I'd repeat it again. I'd usually end with the definition clue again. And I'd be like, okay, tell me, and snap my fingers. And they tell me which one it is. I've also done where I have the kids first point. I'll be like, okay, everybody first point to your guess to make sure everybody's getting engaged. And then I'll say, tell me. So, and that kind of depends on the classes and the kids, if they need that extra support to direct their attention and make sure that they're engaged, ready to say an answer, or if they're a group that can just tell me an answer. And then eventually we move on to where the kids can play this with each other. They can take the vocabulary cards, they can give each other clues, and they try to guess which one they are talking about. All right, and then if there is time on Fridays, I try to do a vocabulary interview with individual students. Sometimes it might just be a student that I'm doing some checks on their learning too. And on the next slide, then we'll look at some more points about the vocabulary. So we talked about the different ways to pair them up and be creative. Like we're the bulldogs, you know, so you might have like Hardin and bulldogs, lions and gazelles, whatever you're doing in your curriculum. Have fun with the partners, you know, have the kids make up 2 different partner ideas. I found out you don't want to use colored popsicle sticks because then the kids' mouths will definitely show which color they chose. And encourage this new partnerships by assigning the kids. Sometimes I'll have the kids I'll hand out all of the jellies. And if there's 2 kids that I want them to take a break from working with each other, I'll make sure they both get jelly. So they have to pick somebody else as a peanut butter to be their partner. And then just make sure you're varying between what's the teacher choice, a student choice, and what is just a random pulling out sticks for partners. And engagement ideas. When you start off, you might say, have them point to something and say the answer, turn and tell a partner. I've even had them start off, okay, tell your knee, or say your thumb, tell your thumb what the answer is, or have them change their voice. You're like, oh, tell me in a monster voice what it is, tell me in a sad voice, anything like that, or even just quick, say it over your shoulder. And if there's a person there, they tell the person. If there's not, then they just are, telling the wall or a puzzle or whatever, and they think that's kind of funny too. And we'll go ahead to the next one. And one time I asked Dr. Nell, I'm like, how can I tell that my young kids, if they're actually learning these words? So she came up with these ideas, ask them, have the little vocabulary interviews. Can they produce the word, correctly say the word again? And then when I asked them to tell me more, okay, tell me more about a market. Can they actually tell me more than just the word when I show them the card? And then does the response tell a function? If the word was teacher, can they say, oh, the teacher, she's the person that teaches us the alphabet. And if it describes part of a whole, like a teacher, oh yeah, she's part of the school, she's part of our classroom. Or you can describe like the perceptual qualities. If it was a shield, oh, a shield protects you. Or a synonym, a street, it's like a road. And if there's some kind of a gesture to go with it, like when you hold up a shield, or you have to stay on the road, they're showing something straight. That's seeing all the depths to their understanding. And that's really where we can build up strong vocabulary and understanding and improve their background knowledge for them too. It's all very important for the young ones. And this was a great quote from one of my students. He was just like, because we got to a Friday, he's like, it's like we do the same thing, only a little different so our brain can remember. I'm like, yeah, that is the perfect description of what we do in vocabulary. So you're still reinforcing all those basic skills, but then you're just extending it, making sure that you're making all these connections, trying to reach all the different learners. It's still one of my favorite things. And we'll look at the next one. So how do you get to this point? And it is a continuous model always of like model, practice, redirect, reinforce. Even when you think they got it down, you still got to go back and do that again. And we do a lot of routine posters. We'll look at, okay, when you come to small group, this is how you show me that you're ready to work. And we have the different pictures that we go through. And keeping it consistent. It's, for me as a teacher, it's almost boring because it's the same thing. Every Monday we do this, every Tuesday we do this, but that's actually really good for a lot of students. Especially I've noticed any of my students that might have instability in their life, they know exactly what is going to happen in the different parts of our classroom, in our vocabulary routine, so they can find comfort in seeing that consistency. And then always keep in mind the students too. This is where that adaptability mindset comes in. You're like, okay, this part isn't working. I do have to tweak it, but I can still keep the goal in mind, the benchmark in mind, and just change it a little bit to reach the students. And so just some reflection points you can think about, what can you shift in your classroom to bring more student voice? Because that was a big thing for me, especially going from like 5th grade to pre-K, how to get students to talk to each other. Because in 5th grade, they always want to talk. And then these little ones, I'm like, you can talk to each other, like it's okay. And that's kind of like building in the safety and what can you do to add more fun using the partner names, adding joy throughout the day. What can you do to nurture the good root development in your classroom? And of course, anywhere you can add movement. And who can you ask for ideas and adaptations, whether it's any peers, co-workers, reaching out to any of us at the Reading League, and there's a ton of stuff online that you can look at too. And then are there any cues you can think of that you need to do to support and redirect the students during this time? So yeah, hopefully that's helping everybody out, giving them some ideas.
Thank you, Kim. I had to say, I popped in the chat box. Everybody pull your cameras back on. We would love to see you and chat just for a few minutes. I've had the privilege of working with Kim for, gosh, was it about 7 years, Kim? And when you popped up the vocabulary, when you said, I asked Dr. Nell, how could I assess if a child knows something? I was just reviewing the videos we took of that experience, and it was actually a research protocol that we did. And we actually have a really cool checklist that was, we'd show the child the word, and the word once was twirl. And I just watched this video earlier this summer and I loved it. And so we have this video of the children looking at the word twirl, and some children are like, well, twirl, it means to go around and around and around. Like you could twirl on the playground, or you could twirl, and like, blah, blah, blah. And then the next child that would see the image would just start spinning. No words. And so we have all these videos of how children, and they were in the same instruction, the same 5 days of repetition and building their word knowledge and all, and the way the children internalized and integrated that word was all extremely variable. So if they had a synonym, it means to go around and around. And some children would say circle. And it was just fascinating. And the reason I say all this is because we're really here to bring practical, applicable research to practice. And Kim is an exemplar of a teacher who's willing to take information and research in early learning and apply it. And so that was awesome that you brought that up, Kim, because you worked really hard at that. And I probably could dig that checklist up if anybody wanted it. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
any questions, everybody?
Kim, I have a question. So with the sound walls, and you were saying 2 different approaches following the scope and sequence of your curriculum, or using the scope and sequence of the Kidlit curriculum. So do you get through all 44 phonemes of English?
We do the consonants and the vowel valley. I usually don't do like the R controlled and the diphthongs. I
Mhm.
usually leave those for the older grades.
So there would be some sounds if you follow the Kidlets program. There's probably some sounds that you'll end up teaching that you may not teach if you strictly followed a preschool curriculum. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I add in, like the TH sounds and the SH and the CH because the kids hear those so much. So I make sure those ones are on the consonant walls. But yeah, some of the other ones we do leave out, or I do.
And we're seeing the sound wall is right behind you, right?
Yes.
Your current one? Mm-hmm. Okay. And at the beginning of the year, we saw videos of your experience at the end of the year. How is the beginning of the year going this year? And could you clarify why it's so valuable to bring this very unique tool into an early learning environment around teaching articulation and early phoneme clarity in production and what you're seeing with that? So what is it like in your classroom now? How are kids learning it? And how does it help clarify that speech production instruction?
Okay. So right now I'm introducing each of the phonemes in small group, and it depends on the kids. It'll be anywhere between 3 to 6 kids at a time, depending on how much support they need. And I'll do the kid lips thing, and then I'll also have a bunch of pictures of things that start with that sound. So like we'll do the whole kid lips lesson for the and then I'll support it with, pictures of like mouse and mat and things like that to bring in the extra practice. And then what was the second question?
Yeah, so that's where you are now. And how I think a sound wall can feel like daunting in an early learning environment. So my question for you was, how is it helping you bring that articulation and helping your students make better sound production in your early learning environment?
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, the first or second sound we learned was the T. So right away that helped a lot of my kids because they would have like a very like lax mouth. And you couldn't even really understand when they were saying any words that began or ended with the T. So it's already helped like, okay, you got to make your mouth tight and you're going to have it open like a little bit, but not too much. And you're not going to drop your jaw with it. And then we have a couple names that start with the T too. So we can be like we were talking, like we had tacos for lunch one day and we always talk about the food and we're like, okay, so what are we having? Tacos. And a couple of the kids, you could tell their mouth wasn't in the right position. So you could give that corrective feedback of like, okay, so we're all going to make our mouths tight and we're going to see that, like this kid's name and then relate it to the word. And that's helped us. It's a lot of just embedded instruction then and little like small interventions throughout the day. That's where I've really noticed being able to bring it in.
Well, I'm going to like sing your praises because I'm a speech language pathologist, everybody. I mean, I dream of teachers like Kim and bringing this into the early learning environment. I know that, Maggie, you're in that early learning environment. It's like a lot of kids have articulation mumbling, or they have lisps, or they're missing, they're fronting, they're backing, they're doing all these different things. And to actually sequentially go through the production of the phonemes in the English language with clear instruction. Let's be clear for maybe Sailor or Maggie or all of those listening later, that in Kid Lips, it gives you clear instruction on how to teach the sound. So if you're going, I don't know how to teach the T in its production, what are you talking about? How about that? Where am I going to put my tongue? It actually gives you all the instructions in the curriculum. So it basically makes you into a speech language pathologist. So can you talk a little bit about overcoming that hurdle for yourself, Kim?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I had to correct my own speech coming back down to preschool. Like I didn't even realize I was making mispronouncing a lot of the sounds because I'm pretty sure I was still saying like b for the b sound and stuff. So I had to clean up my own language. And that's like she was talking about the instruction. It's easy. It's like, okay, today we'll be learning about the j as in jump, and it tells you exactly what to do. Like I bring my top and bottom teeth close together. I shape my lips in a wide circle so I can see my teeth. Like it tells you exactly as a teacher what you do and what to say to the kids. And then they have these little mirrors and they look in the little mirror and they look at the picture and they're like, oh, okay, are my lips rounded? Can you see my teeth? Not see my teeth? Can you feel where your tongue is? Like it is, it's scripted out and it's wonderful. And there's short lessons, like maybe 5 minutes with kids that need like a lot of support in their group. They're really short to get through.
Personally, I mean, Craig and Saylor who's on this call, we on this research kind of nerdy side of it, I would love to see a study that tracks your kids into second grade and how different they spell, because they have this incredible, when they're like, oh, when you're in Kim's room with the students, they're sitting there and they're feeling their mouths and they're looking up at the wall and they're looking, and it's as if they have complete awareness that how they produce the sound informs them about what grapheme they're going to write on the paper. That's profound at that early learning phase, to map that sound production so precisely onto that grapheme so early. Then that spelling plays out later on for the students who are much more phonemically aware with their production. I don't know, maybe Craig, is there an actual research study that shows students who are more able to produce exact articulation early on have clear spelling later on? Do we know that yet?
Short answer, I haven't seen a study like that.
I haven't either, yeah. Saylor, have you?
Or
I have,
Kate?
I have not seen a study like that, no.
No, so I think it would, so for those of you who have,
Carol, did
Carol?
Carol
I think we should do one. It's fascinating.
Right? Yes.
in Kim's
Yes.
room?
I think as a primary teacher, I think it would make a huge difference because they're trying really hard to figure out what to put down. If they had a visual in their head to go with the feeling in their mouth, they could make that connection.
Mhm.
Yeah, it would work. It'll be good.
Are there other questions for Kim?
I have a practical question because this has just been dynamite. How can I share this recording with others?
We will, it is being recorded, and what we'll do is I have to upload them onto our Reading League Montana YouTube channel, and then they're free to access. So I'll send out an email to the broad group of our Reading League, and then you'll have access. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
thank you so much, Kim. We appreciate you sharing your time and
Good,
your
Maggie.
expertise.
Maggie has a question.
Sorry,
No,
I
go for
do
it.
have a question. Sorry to jump in late. I have a couple, more than a couple actually, bilingual speakers.
Mhm.
And so differentiating between their language spoken at home and what we're trying to do in the classroom. Do you have any advice on that, just with forming and producing sounds in English versus their home?
Who wants to jump in? Craig?
So I was reading through a chat to make sure I didn't miss something, and I didn't get the whole question. I'm sorry.
So the question, Maggie, I'll jump in and I'll clarify the question the best I can, and correct me if I'm. So what your question is about, you have these monolingual, potentially Spanish, I'm guessing, or they.
I have Spanish, I have French, and Polish.
Okay, so they're monolingual in their home language, or are they bilingual?
Mostly monolingual. Two of the families are fully bilingual.
Okay, so the parents may or may not speak in both languages.
Correct.
Correct. And important, just meaning like this, so when they come into your classroom, hearing English isn't the first time they're hearing English. But for some, to differentiate that, I think is really important. Some children do come into a classroom and that's the first time they're ever hearing English. And so this, to what Kim is talking about, and we actually have children who speak Crow. We have children who speak Spanish that come into Kim's classroom as well. When teaching the sound structure of the English language, you're teaching that production of that phoneme within the English language. There may be other phonemes in the other languages they speak, but your job, you're not teaching a bilingual classroom, right?
I am not.
So you're teaching an English classroom, so you're teaching them the English phonemic system. And that sound system is so much more clear than if you were doing vocabulary cognates in French and in Spanish and in Polish. You see what I'm saying? Because you're trying to build on some Velcro that they already have in their meaning system. But in the sound system, teaching articulation is a straightforward approach to teaching the sounds of the English language. Okay. Craig, do you have anything to add to that?
So Maggie, was the original question on just how to, if you needed to do anything differently?
Yes, I'm just noticing that a few of the children are producing some sounds just a little bit later than the already English speaking students. It's a little bit more delayed in being able to produce the sound that I'm looking for.
Right.
Are you teaching explicitly? Are you teaching it in this way? Do you have like a Kidlip program? Are you teaching like put your lips together and here's what the picture is and all of those things?
I do.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be fairly typical. So different languages have different phonemes, and so there are going to be some phonemes in English that they're not as familiar with because they haven't heard those embedded within words in their own language. And then also, in addition to having different phonemes, languages also have different rules on how those phonemes get combined. So they're also hearing, in the words that you're saying, right? They're hearing these combinations of phonemes that are different than they've ever heard before. And so those two different things that, they're going to need some additional time and repetition and that explicit instruction of those phonemes that you're noticing that they're having trouble with. Some of that is you got to learn the motor, right? Your brain is sending messages to get your mouth to form this particular shape that you've never formed before. So I think following a script like the Kidlips and having, I like the mirrors. I think that makes a lot of sense. It took me a long time to realize that I actually don't have to give the children the mirror, that I can actually hold it and I can face it to them, which is a little bit more of an efficient way to do it. So I recommend that. Right. Anybody else? Yeah.
I actually hung a big mirror in my room this year with the around so that they could stand and look at their whole face.
Great.
That's
It's really neat.
So Maggie, ASHA, American Speech and Hearing Association, has this, they have phonetic charts for the most common languages. And so we could look up French, Spanish obviously is a more common. Spanish is actually in Kidlips, the actual phonemes that are not present in the English language. It's all right there, but not French and not Polish. So what we could do is see if French and Polish are in those ASHA, the repertoire of the phonemes. And so you could say, oh, wow, in Polish, they have these phonemes that oh, that's why they keep making this funny noise, because it's actually a phoneme in Polish. And so that's really valuable. And
which is also normal that there's a phoneme in English that they haven't heard before, and so they say the phoneme in their language that's the closest in articulation.
Yep. And so your job as a teacher is just building that muscle memory for the production of that phoneme and giving them that extra small group instruction that we saw Kim play a video of with the two students doing the g, 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 lots of touching and feeling. And, that part of it will just be that extra 5 minutes every day for versus the whole group time. But if you have a struggle finding those ASHA phoneme lists, I might just go look them up for you right now, Maggie, and maybe just make them an attachment for you. That makes sense.
And feeling of the throat, is that a vibrating sound or not, and putting your hands on your ears. So that can also be especially valuable. Not all languages have the same number of phonemes, where in English, we have these 8 pairs of consonants that differ primarily just in voicing. Otherwise, they feel the same, they sound the same. It's just the voicing piece that's different. So they may not be familiar with that distinction between phonemes either, or as familiar.
Yeah, in some kids that I've had where we're working on like one sound, I'll have a stack of like little picture cards that I've pulled out, and it'll be the same stack of like 6, 8 words that begin with that sound. So they're constantly getting that first sound. So they're hearing it and producing it. And it's not, I might do it with the whole class, but then I'll bring it in with that kid like as much as I can. Like, can I do this as like a quick transition? Oh, they're at the center by themselves, and go do it quick, or even have them repeat. And that could help too.
I have one last nugget. As a speech language pathologist, one of the things that if things seem to progress and sounds seem to not be quite what they should be, ask mom and dad if in their first language they have the same or similar sound errors, if they're noticing any sound errors. Because you might be actually working with sound production difficulties that are present in both languages, but you don't really know. And so then you might start to think, well, the student's just not generalizing these things, and it could actually be pervasive in both languages. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Any other thoughts on that, Sailor or Carol, or the discussion?
I've just had the experience in working with ELs in our district, when they try to teach me a word and my mouth won't say it. That's just a really good thing for a classroom to hear, that my mouth says all these other ones correctly, but boy, that new one is tricky. So just sharing that can kind of, I don't know that preschoolers are that self-conscious, but with the high schoolers they really are. And just sharing that it's hard. If our mouth hasn't done it before, it's going to be tough.
Oh, I love that one. Maggie, do you have any more questions? You're in the classroom doing the work, so let us know.
No, I mean, everything's scripted so well and presented itself so well. The supplies are clear. I don't have any direct questions on that.
Great.
And that reminded me, I forgot to talk about it, but always giving non-examples. That's a big thing too. So the kids hear an example, but then they hear like a non-example, whether it's like, usually it'll be full vocabulary. We'll be like, okay, this one is a non-example. So they're learning to distinguish too. They're not always getting like a correct answer if your students are ready for that.
I really appreciate your sharing of that vocabulary routine, Kim, and it, obviously with some tweaks is applicable across quite a, large grade range. All right. Well, thank you again. Give Kim some kudos for sharing her wisdom and time and experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
And that concludes our tonight's series. So thank you so much for joining.
Bye, everybody.